Hi, and welcome to the Fundraising Leadership Podcast, episode 41. I'm Janice Cunning.
And I'm Michelle Maloy Dillon.
And Michelle, we are very excited today. We have our special guest, Paul Nazareth, and who's a very good friend of mine and a very well-known Torontonian, which is Toronto, for those of you who are listening who don't know what that is. And Paul is well, in terms of his career, officially he's the Vice President of Education and Development at CAGP, which is the Canadian Association of Gift Planners. But he's probably just as well known for being a networking guru and a very fashionable guy, and a guy who hosts like all sorts of cool events like walks in the summer and brings us together. And so Paul, we're really excited to have you with us.
Happy to be here with you.
Yes, welcome, Paul. We're happy to have you.
So we're going to talk about this concept of playing the long game, which you and I have been talking. I mean, I think you and I have always been talking about this, but you know, in terms of kind of this podcast and the blog, you and I have been pondering this for the past couple of months, and we're gonna kind of break it into two pieces: playing the long game as a fundraiser, and playing the long game in your career. But let's start out like just what kind of excited you about this topic, and what do you want to share with us about the first piece about fundraising?
You know, I'm just about to hit 20 years in the sector. And one of the things that I really find value in it is observing and learning from people I consider to be successful and experts. And this is the exact thing that I saw in them, that both in their work and career, they play the long game. They're not hopping from job to job to advance, but also in terms of the way that they fundraise. And we have many names for it, donor-centeredness and all of this, but they focus on those relationships. And as much as we say that fundraising is all about relationships, what does it mean in actual practice? And so from a fundraising perspective, that's the piece that I think that we have a real challenge with. The sector is obsessed with acquisition and new donors and new technology. And we've been saying disruption for like 3-4 years now, and everybody's getting real tired of it. Because what does it mean, right? And actually organizations that are sustainable are the ones who think and play the long game. They're open to advancement and innovation, but they think strategically.
Well, what I love about what you're saying, saying too, Paul, is that the relationship aspect in playing the long game is something that technology can never take over, right? That's the human-to-human contact in all of this work, is creating that long-term relationship and impact.
Absolutely. I've been someone who's been in the past number of years, my last role was with Canada Helps, Canada's largest digital online charity. And that was all about technology and all about making sure that we innovate and keep up with things. But the organizations that did the best were people that were using the tool for what it was a tactic, not a strategy. And so people who have that relationship piece, I've worked for a couple charities that have relationships with their donors literally from birth until they leave this world. And those relationships are the ones that bring, and it's funny, they do less work because they focus on the relationship and the different touch points as people evolve.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you are actually very well known, you know, in the Canadian charitable space as being somebody who is very leading edge and, you know, social media and, you know, technology and that kind of thing. And yet, like as I've known you, and I've said this to you before, like I've always really admired that you are so far thinking, you know, you are always like kind of like plotting out your career and your life, you know, and your family life, all of these pieces for yourself. So I'm kind of curious, like where does that come from? You know, like what made you realize that was going to be necessary for your success?
You know, this is the nature of being a nerd in your career. It's the work and fundraising that gave my life a focus on planning. You know, probably what's brought me to the Association of Planning, of Gift Planners. When I observed the mentors, the people I brought on, and we've talked before about the concept of a personal board of directors. When I looked at people I considered to be mentors, I found that they were planners. And they would always think about that long game, where do I want to go? And not just what job I want to have or what organization I want to work for, but what are the skills I want to develop? What are the things that I want to achieve in the fundraising, and then that brought a planning element to my life. And it's been a really helpful thing because it allows me to not just mentor in skill development and career development. You know, in the past number of years, you know, we're a few years into having a family and all of that, and I've really buckled down with listening and learning from my mentors in that full perspective. You know, now at another stage of life, quite a number of my mentors are going through health challenges or passing away of family members and things like that. I'm learning from them about the different nature of grief and health challenges in this country. And that all also has to do with our job, with our work in supporting donors. You know, again, we focus too much on the money and campaigns and the tactics when this is also really about walking people through their life and its connection to their connection to our cause.
Mm, yeah, that's really beautiful. It's actually, maybe we'll talk about the personal board of directors because I think that is such a great idea. And I'll set this up as sort of tell us about that, but also like maybe give us some, you know, a few key things that you have used to help you play the long game in your career.
So as much as we focus on skill development and fundraising, and again, the Association of Fundraising Professionals, as much as CAGP has been a huge help in that tactical learning of my career, but I do a lot of external reading on strategy and leadership and personal development and thinking about how that planning element factors in. And so again, it's taking us outside. This is why I run some of these events that I do, the walking workshops, the net walking and things, to get people out of, you know, we actually just default. That's what we do. We default to a conference or a course. We want something to solve our problem when really this is about a life journey. And reading a lot of external authors, even classical authors like the Stoic philosophers or different people that help us through these different stages of career and life. Again, I've got such amazing mentors, people like Malcolm Burrows, who's with Scotia, and on the West Coast, Margaret Mason, who's a lawyer tied to charity. A lot of them really think about what it is they want to do and see and experience as much as what is it they want to achieve.
What you're so brilliantly talking about, Paul, is that we are all whole human beings, right? We're not just the fundraisers or just the people at work or just the family person. It's like this is the playing the long game is the story that we're wanting to create about who we are and how we are being in the world and the relationships that we have. And what can be so fulfilling about fundraising type work is in building relationships. Yes, there happens to be fundraising involved, right?
For sure.
But it's those personal connections, it's those experiences, it's those ways of interacting with each other. It's less transactional, like a course, like I just want a course to tell me the answer or whatever.
And as a fundraiser, these things are not disconnected, right? Correct. Our emotional intelligence, our social intelligence is completely tied to our job, and being able to connect with donors in their different ages and stages of life is equally important.
Yeah. So for those who are intrigued and thinking like, what is a personal board of directors? Tell us a little bit about, what that is and what it gives you, more importantly.
Yeah, and again, it's out there in the world. Harvard Business has written about it. I first learned about it from the Humber College fundraising program, which I've really enjoyed being connected to for now a number of years. And they talk about simply that as a charity, you have a board of directors. Well, as an individual, you're kind of like a company. You're CEO of Me Incorporated. So why don't you have? Everybody thinks they need one or two mentors when you really need a good number of them, like a board. And so when you talk about a board, you need someone in kind of legal and finance and strategy. Well, it's the same thing with a personal board, in that we need someone to help us with the career development, skill development. We need someone ahead of us pulling us forward. We need someone behind us, pushing us forward. I like to talk about having younger people who mentor us, but also kind of piss us off with their ambition, their scariness that they're coming to eat our lunch. It's good to have not just a running mate, someone who's scaring you forward.
Yes.
And then the other part is, again, as times change and age and stage of life change, just like we turn over boards in organizations, you need to turn over your personal board. And as you advance in your career, well, the board needs to advance as well. And so it's a constant cycle of mentorship. And again, we learn more by teaching than anything. So having people that you mentor is also an important thing. I meet a lot of fundraisers who've advanced in their careers, and they're really focused on their own mentors and not as much of who they're teaching and helping on their way up.
Yeah, I feel like I want to hashtag scare you forward. It's like, I love that. I was like, that just like, so I don't know, it just like made me in my body. I was like, felt some sense of like, ooh, like excitement. And you know, we talk about in coaching, like kind of calling people forth. That feels like a very calling forth kind of energy, but you're setting it up yourself. So yeah. One of the other things you do that you know, that I've benefited from personally is that you do have this big walking event every summer here in Toronto. And so I'm in terms of playing the long game in your career, maybe tell us like where did that come from, and again, like,
So
you know, how is that adding to you?
The walking event is the secret tip of the iceberg. I only do one public event a year, and that's the summer one. But I do probably about 30 of these a year around conferences. So whenever I'm going to be in town for a conference, I'll let a few people know and we'll do it. So I call it networking while walking. It's a walking workshop. So it's not just walking and open talking. I very much guide it, as you've been there.
Mm-hmm.
Number of exercises to help us with not just networking, but connecting and career advancement ideas and planning and problem solving. So I do them all across the country. Whenever I'm going to be at a conference, the morning of, and you know, those times to help us think. That's the key thing. We got to get out of the conference room and these stale air spaces. No disrespect to conferences, because they're needed for skill development.
Mm-hmm.
To think outside the box, then we got to get outside the box. It's an effect of, that's when we do as groups. And then about 10 years ago, this is how I changed all my networking meetings. We were in coffee shops forever. Well, almost every single morning when I can, I'm with an individual and we're walking and talking. And it's really just trying to take out the frameworks that keep us, you know, the cubicles of our mind.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and there's something about being physical that I know this, I learned this from my teenage son years ago when he was living at home, right? It's like the only way I could really get information from him and to help him free him from his worries was to go for a walk or a drive. And then suddenly I begin to hear all about these great ideas and things that were in his head. Because he wasn't locked in, like you said, to that conference room or that format or that whatever needs to happen here. And so there's such an ability through that motion to create a different type of conversation and a different energy around it. So I love these things that you're creating.
Yeah.
Again, it all came from the career piece. The CGP, we hold a course in Banff, Alberta, in the mountains every year. And the original person who started teaching that course was a mountaineer. I'm a big junkie of CBC in the States, NPR podcasts. There was a great one talking about how the human brain didn't expand because of intelligence. It expanded because of movement, because our need to, our requirement to be different in that way. But the movement also helped us to help digest the concept of intelligence. And so in this course, it's intense. We do like 10 plus hours a day for 4 or 5 days. But we teach by the day and we get out in the fresh air and kind of hike at night. And that's where, again, this reminded me that as much as we can do that, it actually ends up helping bring dimension to the conferences too for people, because it's in a much better place.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know for me, I often do that now. I've taken that from you and our good friend Liz Redmond. We were just out recently. We always like think of you, Paul, because we're like, oh, we're net walking, you know.
Yes.
So I think part of playing the long game too is you know, your impact really spreads, and you know, I'm a personal testimony to like learning so much from you. So so we want to get you know, Paul, we'd love to give people something to try because we're coaches. So Michelle and I can't resist. And Paul is, you know, not technically a coach, but really he is a coach, because that's kind of who he is and how he shows up in the world. So in terms of thinking about people's career, what is something practical that you'd like to get them to try?
So, you know, on the career development side, one of the big secrets is don't do it alone. So many people think they've got to do it alone. There's a little bit of a pride element there that I suffered from as well. And I'll tell you, this is how one of the ways that our relationship was deepened. I was talking to one of these young professionals who was really upsetting me and scaring me forward. And I said, you know, how are you moving so quickly through a lot of different career development loops and jumps and everything? And then this person confessed to me that you were coaching them. And I realized, you know, what an idiot I've been to try to always do everything alone. I always thought I could only use the tools we know. Again, Association of Fundraising Professionals and CAGP and a lot of these forums are here to help us with mentoring and membership and all of that. But there's a lot more resources we can get in our local communities. Across Canada and the United States, there's a lot of nonprofit networks and community mentoring opportunities. And we've got to think outside this. So it's time to go out and say, how do we create our personal board? But start with one person. Bring on a new mentor. Think about skill development or personal development. Where do you want to go? And bring on a new person to help you achieve that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a great challenge. Okay, everyone, go out and find a new mentor. Someone who's going to push you in a different way, right?
Yeah.
Than you have invited
course,
in the past. Yeah.
And as a fundraiser, you know, again, that's exactly why I doubled down, joined CAGP. We're trying to tell people that planned giving is not an other. It's not some technical sorcery thing you got to learn. It's part of how you fundraise. So, you know, I'd love for people to just, you know, Google legacy giving. This is some experts I cite in the blog, people like Leah Eustace and John Lepp and David Kravenchuk, even Sheena Greer is a writer. It's part of what we do. And actually, in a lot of ways, it's respecting our donors to focus less on the tactic of raising money and more on the journey of where they're going as a donor with us. So I encourage people to look at legacy giving. Again, the Gift Planning Association, we have a wonderful textbook, really easy to get access to, that will help people on that journey to diversify their revenue and fundraising.
Yeah, great. So you always have a lot going on, Paul. So tell us about your latest project, your upcoming projects, and then how people can reach out to you.
Well, this is, again, part of playing the long game. I encourage people to always say you need that core job that fulfills you and is activating your superpowers. But there always needs to be something that's making you a little uncomfortable, you know, something on the side that's helping you learn new skills and try new things. And for me, I've done a number of things over the years. We were talking before, I started a men's fashion company at one point. Because I believe that nonprofit men could use a little bit more fashion if we want to move into major gifts and all that. But the next thing is starting an organization called Connect Working and getting back out there to teach on the topic of personal branding and networking. It's not a job search skill, it's a career and personal development skill. So I'm excited to get back and start speaking at business schools and associations on personal branding, career development, and networking in the next little while. So it's going to be fun to get back and do that. And hopefully by the next couple of years, write a book.
So how might our audience be able to contact you or keep in touch with what you're up to in the world, Paul?
Well, you know, the one thing I hope to be is someone who's accessible. So I always tell people, if you can't find me, that's on me. And so everywhere, if you Google me, my cell phone number is in the picture above my head on LinkedIn. Click contact. It's all there. So LinkedIn is where I live. I always tell people when they see me, this is just a hologram. So LinkedIn's probably the easiest place, but I'm active on Twitter and Instagram. You know, accessibility and connecting and learning from people is what I try to do. So if they can find me in those places, I'm always happy to connect and see how I can be of help.
All right. So look you up on LinkedIn at Paul Nazareth, Nazareth.
That's right.
Thanks,
and
Paul.
we will link to that as well.
Yes.
So yeah, I want to thank you, Paul. You know, you mean so much to me. You've been really personally supportive of me over the last few years, invited me to many of your events, had me speak at some of your events, helped me expand my network. And, you know, I learned so much from watching you and from the books that you review and from the events that you host. So you're doing so much for me and so many of us in the sector. So I want to personally thank you for taking your time today. And yeah, we'll just remind you to please subscribe if you haven't subscribed to the podcast already. We're on iTunes, Google Play, and Spotify. and we'll say goodbye and go put it into practice. Get that mentor who will hashtag scare you forward. Thanks, Paul.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.